Hello everybody, this is my 1991 Toyota MR2. It is a non-turbo model equipped with the 5SFE engine. The current issue I'm having is that on startup, bluish grayish smoke comes out of the exhaust tailpipe. The most common issue that could potentially be happening with my MR2 is the valve guide seals. I will however be performing a cylinder leak down test to rule out if faulty piston rings and or wear in a specific cylinder is also part of the cause of the bluish gray smoke. So let me go ahead and show you what the bluish gray smoke looks like.
Smoke comes out and it eventually goes away, and it really only just shows it on cold starts. A couple of other things that would cause smoke, especially on startup, would be first of all condensation. Condensation builds up overnight in your whole exhaust system, so whenever you start the car and you see smoke in the morning, it's most likely because of condensation. But that usually throws out a clearish white smoke to it. Mainly looks clear. And the other thing is coolant. If coolant is leaking into your cylinder, that would cause smoke, either on startup or at all times. And what's going on for me is oil burning. Oil burning most likely from the valve guide seals, because I only see smoke, like visibly see smoke on cold starts. But that's not to say it's not also burning oil at all times where it's just not visible, because some vehicles do burn oil but you just can't see it coming out of your tailpipe. So yeah, let me show you the process on how to do a leak down test and go from there.
Alright, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jack the car up and put it on jack stands. That way I have access to be able to move the crankshaft through the crankshaft bolt, pulley bolt. That way I can set it at top dead center on cylinder 1 and start from there. So I'm going to jack it up right now. In case you're wondering where to jack up a 91 Toyota MR2, where you put your jack at is here on the rear subframe. Just jack it up to a height you're comfortable with, and once you get it all jacked up, I have these jack stands with pads on them, and I put it on. There's two like notches right there where it indicates where to put it. I'll show you what the front ones look like, since these are the notches I'm talking about. They have them in the front, they have them in the rear. So in my case right now I have them in the rear. Now that I have the car jacked up, now I have access to this plastic shield that's covering up the crankshaft pulley bolt. So I'm going to be removing this plastic cover off. It's held on by a couple of 10mm bolts. So there's one there, one there. One right there, and yeah, just hold on by a couple of 10mm bolts. I'll take them off, and then I'll see how many I had to take off. Actually, that is plenty. I am now can probably just move this out the way and just fit whatever size socket that is. So let me go ahead and see what that is. Looks like a 19, but I could be wrong. It indeed is a 19. All right.
So with the wheel removed, I now have access to that crankshaft pulley bolt. And what you want to do is line up. There's a mark on that crankshaft pulley You want to line it up with, let's see if I can get a mark on the timing cover. Let's see if I can get a, you want to line it up with that 0. I don't know if you can see that mark right there. There's a mark right there, and then there's going to be a mark on the other side, which is very hard to see. But there is a mark right there, and you line it up with that 0 on that timing cover. Now that we have cylinder 1 at top dead center, we're ready to check to see how much leakage that cylinder has. But what I'm actually going to do right now is remove all 4 spark plug wires and all 4 spark plugs. That way, whenever we're done checking cylinder number 1, we can move on to 2, 3, and 4. So let's get to it. After you have the spark plug wires removed, you're going to want to use a 5/8 spark plug socket and of course an extension and a ratchet. The spark plug socket that I'm using, the magnet is actually missing. So I'm going to be using just a regular magnet to pick it up. You could also use a rubber hose if you have one. That works too. This is my cylinder leakage tester. It's Lang tools, and these are extra fittings that I might need depending on the spark plug thread pitch. I'll just have to match it up with whatever works for my cylinder head. There it is. Here are instructions on how to use it. The only step I'm not going to be doing as far as what this instruction manual wants me to do is have the engine at operating temperature. It'll probably change the numbers a little bit, but not too worried about it. That's the only thing I'm not going to do. I'm going to try to thread this in to my engine cylinder head where the spark plug goes, and that's how we'll know if this is the right thread pitch, but it looks like it, so I might not have to use those adapters that I have. It is threading in, so that is the right thread pitch. You just want to have it at snug, you know, not super tight. That's good enough right there.
I need cylinder 1 on top dead center of the compression stroke. That way the intake and exhaust valves are closed. So when I hook on my cylinder leakage tester, I can get an accurate reading if a problem is present. Cylinder 1 is at top dead center since I lined up the timing cover mark with the crankshaft pulley mark. However, I won't know if I'm in the compression stroke or exhaust stroke until I hook on my cylinder leakage tester. If I have a reading of excessive leakage on the cylinder leakage tester gauge, then I'm in the exhaust stroke and I need to rotate the crankshaft 360 degrees. That way I end up on the compression stroke. Now that I have my air compressor filled up with air, I'm ready to start checking for leakage in cylinder 1.
So you connect your male fitting on your tool to your line. Once you get that on there, you just want to get this set to 0. So you pull this back down and you start feeding air until it says 0. See, we're at 0 right now, so now we connect this line right here, and you want to connect this to this fitting right here and see how much leakage we have. And don't forget to remove your ratchet from the crankshaft pulley bolt in case this were to move just a little bit. There is always a likelihood that once you connect shop air that your crankshaft will rotate a little bit. So just be ready for that. I would remove your ratchet for sure. That's my fitting. It's leaking right now. Alright.
Notice how the gauge on the right shows 100% leakage. That indicates that we are on the exhaust stroke instead of the compression stroke. So I need to go down to the crankshaft and rotate the crankshaft 360 degrees. So essentially what I have to do is rotate the crankshaft to get the crankshaft pulley mark to line up once again with the timing cover mark, since we are 360 degrees out.
I went down there and I rotated the crankshaft, so we should be in the compression stroke now for cylinder number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and hook up the tool once again.
Now that I'm on the compression stroke, it shows that cylinder number 1 has 15% leakage. Now, if the gauge were to read 40% and above, then there'd be some concern. I would want to start checking several spots. I would want to remove the air intake box and see if I can feel or hear an excessive amount of air coming out of there to indicate a bad intake valve. Then I would want to go to my exhaust muffler and see if I can feel or hear an excessive amount of air coming out of there to indicate a bad exhaust valve. Then I would open up my radiator cap and see if I can see any bubbles forming there, which would indicate either a bad head gasket, or warped head, or warped block, a cracked head, a cracked block. Then I would remove my engine oil dipstick. That way I can feel and listen for an excessive amount of air coming out of the engine oil dipstick tube to indicate if I have bad piston rings and a worn cylinder. So after checking cylinder number 1 for leakage, and it came back at 50%, which is good. The next best one to check is cylinder number 3. Because the firing order on this particular engine is 1, 3, 4, 2. So after cylinder number 1, number 3 comes up next in the compression stroke. And now we can't rely on a timing cover mark to find out what's top dead center on cylinder number 3. So I'll grab a coat hanger like this and I'll unravel it. And I'll straighten it out the best I can with a pair of pliers, because I'm going to be using this coat hanger and stick it inside the cylinder to help me indicate top dead center of the compression stroke. Before I insert the coat hanger in the spark plug hole, I'll thread in the air hose fitting that's part of the leakage tester into the spark plug hole. Then I'll put the air hose fitting towards my face as I rotate the crankshaft. And as soon as I feel air on my face, that tells me the compression stroke is starting. And I'll take the air hose out of the spark plug hole and I'll insert the metal coat hanger and finish rotating the crankshaft till the coat hanger is at its highest point, which tells us we are on top dead center of the compression stroke. Cylinder number 3 ended up being the worst out of all 4 cylinders. It had 50% leakage. That is why I have the air intake box removed towards the left. And I also had the radiator cap removed because I wanted to see if any bubbles were forming in the radiator cap, which there wasn't any. And I did feel a little bit of air coming out of the air intake, slightly a little bit more than a normal amount. But where I was feeling more air was when I removed the engine oil dipstick. I put my hand towards the engine oil dipstick tube and I felt more air than what was normal. So that would indicate that I have bad piston rings and or a worn cylinder in cylinder number 3. I did also go to my exhaust muffler and try to listen and feel for air coming out of there, but there was not an excessive amount coming out of there, so the exhaust checked out good. After I got my results from cylinder number 3, I moved on to cylinder number 4 and I just repeated the process. I put the air hose fitting into cylinder number 4. I rotated the crankshaft until I felt air hit my face. Once I felt air hit my face, that indicated that the compression stroke was starting. So I removed the air fitting and I put the coat hanger down. and I rotated the crankshaft until the coat hanger was at its highest point, and then I removed the coat hanger and I put the air hose fitting back in, and I was ready to connect my tool once again.
Looks like cylinder number 4 is good. It's at 15%. So last one to check is number 2. And looks like number 2 is the best so far, just a little bit below 15. So 3 is the only one that really has an issue.
This is the air compressor that I use to provide air to my cylinder leakage tester tool. It is a 1.5 horsepower, 6 gallon, 150 maximum PSI compressor. It is adequate enough to get the job done because you need 100 PSI for the tool. And this one, what I did was I just filled it up to 150 PSI, and then whenever I hooked up my tool to my air hose, it would eventually drop down to 120, and then it would kick back on and it would maintain itself at 120. So it's adequate enough to get the job done. You just need a long hose to have the compressor far away from you because it's going to be running the whole time you're doing the test.
So in conclusion, it looks like we're going to be doing a engine rebuild on this thing, just from the test results we got from doing the cylinder leak down test. It looks like cylinder number 3 has bad piston rings and something with the intake valve possibly, since there was also air leakage there. But where I was mainly feeling air was when I was putting my hand on the oil dipstick tube. I would put my hand up against it and there was just an excessive amount of air on my hand, and the gauge even indicated that it had, I believe, 40% leakage. I already forgot. I just know that 1, 2, and 4 were between 10 and 15, which were in the normal range. But number 3 is not good. So I was hoping it was only going to be valve guide seals, because if it was 10 to 15%, then it would have been just valve guide seals, which I'm still pretty sure that the smoke that's coming out on cold starts is from the valve guide seals, but obviously there's more going on, so might as well fix the issue while we're going to do the valve guide seals. So now the cylinder head's going to come off, and we're going to do a full rebuild, piston rings and valve guide seals, and see what else needs to be replaced on the way. But yeah, that's why doing a cylinder leak down test is very effective. It pinpoints problems that your engine has, because without that tool I was just probably going to do valve guide seals and never had even found out that I had something going on in cylinder 3. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll definitely keep you guys involved on the process of the route I go for this engine. If you found the video helpful, or if you liked the video, go ahead and give me a like, and give me feedback on what you thought on the video. I appreciate it. You guys have a good one.